All right, welcome back everybody. We're back here at school. We're getting ready to do the flake on the skateboards. We've already done the silver, that was the last thing we did. However, it's been a couple days, okay? So these have been sitting for a couple days, and typically with paint, and each manufacturer is a little bit different with their requirements. Most paints, if you recoat them, so you would either clear them or flake them or whatever the next step would be. If you do that within the next 12 to 24 hours, okay, so let's say we did the silver 2 days ago, and we were able to do it all in the same day, you can skip this portion, okay? But typically at school, we have to let it sit overnight or a couple days before we can do the next step. So we have to treat it a little bit differently, okay? It's outside of the 12 to 24 hour window to recoat. So what I want to do is give it a little bit of a sanding, okay? And that'll help the next coat adhere, right? So there's a couple different ways to do this. Let's say that the board came out really clean, there's no dirt in it, okay? It feels nice and smooth. I'm wearing gloves so I don't get fingerprints on it at this point, all right? So let's say it's nice and clean, there's no dirt or anything. All we need to do is give it a quick little scuff, okay? I'm gonna be using a gray Scotch-Brite. Don't use the red ones at this point. The red ones are a little too aggressive, and they'll actually tear up the paint a little bit. So a gray one, all right? And all I'm gonna do, light pressure, is just go around and give it a nice little scuff, okay? I wanna make sure I get everything evenly, and I don't wanna press too hard. I don't wanna dig in, all right? So give it a nice little scuff. You wanna make sure you get everything. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna reapply one more coat of silver, okay? So what that's going to do is it's going to reattach itself to what's already on there, and then when we spray the flake, okay, it's going to be able to bond to the silver we just put on, because if we sprayed the flake on right now, it will not attach itself very well to the silver because it's too dry, right? It's sealed itself off and it doesn't want to accept anything else. So we have to give it a little bit of a sanding, right? And like I said, if you're doing this all the same day and you're just waiting for it to dry in between coats, you can skip this part. But typically in between coats, you have to do a little scuffing to get the next coat to stick, all right? And you're probably wondering, well, you're scuffing it right now. Why can't we just reapply flake to it? Why can't we just go ahead with the flake instead of applying one more coat of silver? The reason is with light colors, silvers, golds, light blues, that type of stuff in a metallic, when you go to scuff it, you'll end up seeing all the scratches, okay, on the surface. And so if I went to go ahead and clear it or put on flake, chances are you're going to see all those scratches through there, okay? So we do have to scuff it, put a coat of silver on there, and then the flake, so that it bonds to the new coat of silver, right? And it's quick. It's quicker than the first time because we're only doing one coat. Okay, just give it a nice little scuff. Now, at this time also, it's a good time to see if there's any chunks of dirt, any little debris, lint, or anything that you need to fix. Do it now. Also, if there's a little scratch or something you weren't happy with in the prep, you can sand it down a little bit now and then fix it with the silver. And what we're going to do with that is take a piece of sandpaper, and this is actually 1,000 grit, so 1,000 grit. It's kind of cut off there, so it's hard to see it. But it's 1,000 grit, and I would recommend using 800 grit to 1,000 grit to get off any little dirt nibs. You don't want to go too rough because you'll end up seeing scratches, and you got to put on more paint just to cover up the scratches. Okay, so go fine at this point. And all I'm looking for is a little bit of any dirt, debris. Just give it a quick little scuff. Okay? Don't get aggressive. Don't dig in too deep. You can also use a little bit of water with it at this point if you needed to, because sometimes the base coat will gum up the paper pretty quick. So a little bit of water will also work, but it's not necessary. If I was doing a larger area, I'd probably use a little bit of water, but we're looking pretty decent. Okay. Now, once I've got it scuffed with a Scotch-Brite, sanded it if it needs it, I'm going to tack it off with a tack rag. I don't like to use any solvents or cleaners at this point if it's not necessary. I've been wearing my gloves. So what I'm going to do is tack it off and then throw on one more coat of the silver that we used last time. I still have some left over. Let that dry up for maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's a warm day out today, so it should dry pretty quick. And then we'll go ahead with our flake. All right. Now, before I pull away from this, I've got 2 skateboards sitting here. This is the one that we primed twice. Okay. And it came out really nice. There's a couple little chips we might have missed, but we'll keep going. The one next to it has not been primed twice, and I just wanted to kind of show you, see if it shows up in the reflection. I'm not sure if you could see all the ripples. So it's got a lot of ripples in the wood. Trying to get a reflection on that. Kind of hard to see it in the light. All right. But this one had a lot of flaws. Mainly it's just the wood, right? The ripples of the wood are causing it to have a lot of ripples. So definitely a second prime helped a lot in flattening it out. All right. So obviously I get a little bit of a shot there. You can see the ripples in it. Okay. All the ripples are going in this direction, long ways. So definitely, and it's hard to see, I should have shot this before we sanded it, but this one's way better. It doesn't have all the ripples. Now it's got some sand scratches, but that's all right. But the difference is tremendous with the second prime versus just priming it once. Big difference in the finish of the prep, okay? If I can get a better shot at the ripples on the board that was only primed once. If you can see them a little bit better in this angle. Right, you can see all the lines. There's a bunch of lines going horizontally here. Those are all ripples in the wood, just from the wood. But then the other one we did is really nice and clean and straight. So the second prime really does a lot for the wood. Really makes it look a lot better. You can see it right there. Okay. So second prime is definitely better to get a nicer finish. Same gun as we use, same settings, same paint. All I'm going to do is tack this off with the tack rig and then shoot maybe 1 to 2 coats depending on what it needs. Same as we did before, everything's the same, just to try to cover up the sand scratches. Light pressure, don't push too hard. Getting up close and wiping it off, cleaning, whatever, is a good time to check for any flaws that might need to be fixed. Okay? Now's the time to do it. Alright, once you've tacked it, set the gun up. About 28, 29 pounds right there. Shoot for around 30 maybe an hour. This stuff on control coat. It's not 100% necessary all the time, but it's a nice little trick to help even out the metallics. And you can do it a few times until you get the desired effects of what you're looking for. So we'll let this sit for about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll start flaking. All right, so let's bring it back then. All right, we're back here in the paint room. I want to start mixing up a little bit of flake. We're ready to do that in the booth. So I want to show you how to do that. Now we're using a couple different products here. The main one is the Intercoat Clear. This is a House of Color product. Basically, it's a base coat with no color in it, is the way I see it. So with this, we can add the flakes to it. We can add candies to it. We can do a lot of different effects with this. You can also use it in between layers if you're doing a lot of artwork that you don't want to get ruined. You can throw a coat or two of this on over your artwork to protect it. And it allows you to do more work on top of it without fear of ruining what's underneath. Okay, so we use the Intercoat Clear along with our regular reducer, and I'm going to be using a medium reducer today, even though it's a little warm. I do want to speed it up a little bit. And these are mixed equal parts, 1 to 1. One part of the Intercoat Clear to one part of reducer. Okay, and to that we add flake. Right, and the flake just comes in a can. It's dry. It's like glitter from a craft store, basically. And you add that to the clear mixture, and it basically depends on how much you want to put in. There's really no mixing ratio for how much you put in. If you want a little bit, you put a little bit. If you want a lot, you put a lot in. So it's a versatile type of thing that just experience is what's going to tell you how much to use, okay, over time. So the more you use it, the more you become familiar with it. So I have a silver flake. So here's a silver flake. I have a rainbow flake. I have a couple of black boards in there. I was going to try to do a little blue flake, maybe a little red flake over those, see what they look like. We'll see. I'm also going to be using this 3M gun. It's kind of a weird gun. It's all plastic, but it has interchangeable heads for it. So if you leave paint in it or something, you can just throw this away. If it doesn't get cleaned or if it gets damaged, you just buy another one of these and the gun stays the same. And these just clip on to the head. The head goes to the body, and then you attach your paint gun to that, or your paint cup. This one is 1.8. I'll have to see if I got another tip. This one's was a bad one anyway. So I would say probably for flake a 1.8 to 2.4, 2.5, somewhere in there would be fine for flake. So let me go see if I've got another tip for that also. But we're doing PPS cup liner, same thing we always do. And I typically mix up my clear first and then add the flake to it. So again, I'm just using the one of the scales on the side. It doesn't really matter if it's equal parts, 1 to 1. You can use any of them. You're just doubling whatever you put in there. So I'm going to go, I'll pour up to 7. So this is not ounces or anything. This is just numbers here. So I'm going to pour up to 7 with the clear and then pour up to 14 with the reducer. So 7. And I know I'll need to make up more, but you don't want to be wasteful and make up more than you think you're going to need, or too much more. I always want to have enough material to finish the job, but I don't want to have a bunch of paint waste left over. So again, experience will tell you how much to make. Okay, so let's mix that up real quick, and then I'm going to add in the silver. So I'm just going to start with some silver flake. And it can be poured in, or I usually use a paint stick to kind of help it along here. Okay, so I'll add some, and then what I do is I just give it a nice stir and kind of see how concentrated it is. I prefer to build up the flakes slowly. If you go too heavy on the first coat or two and something goes wrong, it goes too heavy, it's uneven, it's really hard to fix. So I prefer to start out light and build it up slowly. That eliminates a lot of problems. Okay, and that goes with flakes, with pearls, with candies. Start easy and then slowly build up to what you're trying to achieve. Okay, Now, it looks like there's a lot of flake in there, but when I pull out the stick, I'm kind of looking to see how concentrated it is on the stick. Not too bad. I think I'll add just a little bit more. And the other thing with custom painting is you want to be able to get the desired effect you're looking for with the least amount of material, okay? Now with custom painting, there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of steps, a lot of different colors, and it gets really thick by the time you're at the end, okay? So what you're trying to do during the process is put the least amount of material to get the desired effect you're looking for, okay? That eliminates a lot of problems with it going on too heavy, all right? So let's see what we got here. All right, I think we should give this a try. All right, let's seal that up a little bit. Now with the lids, they always have a strainer in there. Now with flake, you want to take the strainer out because I've tried it before on accident. I'll leave the strainer in and I'll start spraying, and all it sprays out is clear because it stops all the flake from coming through. So you want to make sure if you go in there and start spraying and it looks like clear, you probably forgot to take out the strainer, okay? So some of the newer ones are a little bit easier to take out. These old ones, sometimes I have to cut them out with a razor blade. But that came out, so the strainer comes out and it's wide open, okay? So you do want to make sure there's no dirt and junk that's getting into your paint. That one. And actually what I'm using here is the original PPS cup. It's a little different. It's got a separate retaining ring. It's still got the outer housing. It's still got the liner. The cap is a little bit different, so it takes a different adapter, and it has this ring on there to clamp everything down. But the reason I'm using it is this takes the original PPS one. So I want to see if I've got a head for that. So let me check that real quick. All right, so here's a new head for it. And you just pop right on. Make sure it's on there all the way. It's got two little tabs on the sides. You want to make sure those are engaged. All right. Very simple. And then it just screws on the same as the other one. Now with flake, you want to be careful. The flake has a tendency, it wants to settle to the bottom, okay? So I usually keep it off the gun until I get into the spray booth, and while I'm in the spray booth, I want to make sure that if I'm not using it, it's kept in this position. I don't want to tip it upside down on the gun because it'll end up, let me show you. Okay. Store it like this when you're not spraying. If you keep it like this when after you're in between coats, all the material, and you can kind of see it in here, it's just going to clog all this up, right? Because gravity is going to push it down and clog it up right down here, okay? So I want to make sure that I keep it upside down like this. And then every once in a while you're in the booth, give it a little shake. That way the flakes stay suspended, okay? Otherwise they all just settle down, okay? So I'll take it into the booth and we'll start doing a little bit of flake. All right, we're back. Ready to start doing the flake. We've let it dry completely. Again, if it's sat for too long, you want to scuff it and recoat it. We just did this about 20 minutes ago, 25 minutes ago, so we're ready for flake. We've got the flake all mixed up, silver flake. And again, you want to make sure you're storing the gun upside down like this so the flake settles at the bottom. Otherwise, if it's sitting like this, it's going to clog up the gun, okay? So store it upside down. Every once in a while, give it a little shake to get the flakes agitated, and then you're ready to go. All right, so with the flake, I'm typically a little bit further away, about 12 inches, but everything else is the same. Same pattern, same everything, wait for it to dry in between coats. We'll probably do about 5, 6 coats or so on this flake. I like a lot of flake, but again, you can put on as much as you want or as little as you want. All right, so let's get started. coats are better, okay? This has a real good tendency to run with this clear. So if you try to flood it, it will run. And basically when that happens, you start all the way over, okay? You start all the way over, you have to sand it down. You might have to reprime some spots, but you'll have to resilver it and reflake it. So it's better to go slow than have to redo everything, okay? We'll let this sit about 5 minutes and then start recoating. Letting about 5 minutes in between coats seems to be okay today. It's a warm day, but I do want to make sure that it dries. I don't want to trap a bunch of solvents in there. All right, ready for coat 2? come back and do some clear. I don't know if you can see it. See the reflection of the flake, hopefully. Should be able to see a little better on that side maybe with the lights. All right, so this is what we're looking for, a nice even coat of flake. This is gonna look really nice under some candy. All right, we'll be back to clear.